Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome today to our webinar. My name is Leighton Healy, and today we're talking about marketing. Very excited to have three experts on the panel today, three marketing experts that all have a broad range of experience in all the aspects of marketing that we can draw from. Um, as I said, my name is Leighton Healy. I'm the CEO of KnowHow. We're a software that turns all your marketing and business development activities into a system-driven machine. So just to tell you a little bit about our format, today's a panel. So we want to get questions from you. So what you'll notice on the right hand of the screen, you'll notice that there's a chat menu there. This is a great time for you to, tell us where you're from. If you're comfortable, share, what company you're with, and start throwing down those marketing questions. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be drawing either from questions from the audience or questions that were submitted ahead of time. But our format is going to be me doing my best to be able to get as many nuggets of wisdom from each of these experts as possible so that you can leave this webinar ready to just lock and load some proven tactics into your business. We're thrilled to have three marketing experts with us today. John Braun from Hitman Advertising. John is a leading marketing expert in the restoration and cleaning industry. His experience spans from digital marketing to radio to direct mail, you name it. We also have Trina Lo. She's the founder and head of marketing at Fresh Ink Communications. Trina has over 20 years of experience in almost every aspect of digital and traditional marketing. And we're excited to have Timothy Miller from Business Development Associates. Timothy runs a full service consulting and training firm that specializes in the whole suite of all the service that restorers need. And they have a strong tactical, strategic core around marketing. And so we are definitely well represented today. We're recording this panel. So as we go through this, if you say, oh, I wish I would have wrote that down, or I wish I could have shared that with my team member, we've got you covered. We're going to send a recording of this event to you following the event so that you can have that as a resource. But before we get started, I just want to just thank some of our promotional partners. So we've had a number of organizations that have just helped us to get the word out. We want to thank Business Mentors. They've been a partner of ours from the beginning. They have over 30 years of providing expert advice to restoration companies. Phil and his team there really are the pros. We also have Core Group. Core Group is definitely one of the most dynamic and innovative networks of restoration companies today. We also have Ask Amy, Chris and his team. If you're not familiar with Ask Amy, they are the instant Xactimate estimate review software that allows you to be able to find out where are you leaving money on the table. And they have a really cool offer for you. Actually, they have an offer where on June 1st and June 2nd, they're offering free Xactimate reviews. So you're going to want to check that out at askamy.com. And then we have Hitman Advertising, and they have a free marketing plan waiting for you on their website at hitmanadvertising.com. So let's kick things off to our panelists. And the opening question that I'm going to start with Tim, and then we'll move to Trina and over to John, is what should a marketer's day look like right now? So when we think about COVID, we think about all the things that we can't do. If you're a marketer right now working within a restoration company, perhaps a construction company, Tim, what should their day look like? What should their week look like? Let's start with you.
Okay. So the first question really comes down to whether or not the company is providing infection control services for COVID. If they are, that's going to change things quite a bit. And it's going to shift from a sale that is largely an intangible sale, a relationship building sale, a referral network creation sale, to an actual service sale. So that's going to be a major difference. But one thing that I want to point out that I think is incredibly important, as restorers are marketing pre-COVID, they have some sort of a value proposition, which is based on whatever they are seeing as the service that they're providing to the people they want to do business with, or the people that they want to refer them. In our approach, we look at the fundamental business challenges of agents and plumbers and property managers and facility managers and so on. And what's really important to remember is that those pains have not gone away because we're in the middle of a pandemic. They may be of different priority now for your prospects, but they are still there. And what I exhort my clients constantly is do not abandon that work. You must continue to market, must continue to sell to those people. And obviously, the main difference is the face-to-face aspect is largely out of the question right now. So salespeople do not use the coronavirus epidemic to avoid doing the hard work of getting on the phone and working your sales process. Zoom or some related program should be second nature as how you're going to meet with people for right now. But it's very, very important that they continue the same process that got them there, weaving COVID in if it's appropriate, so that on the other side of this, we haven't lost a tremendous amount of ground.
Excellent. Revisit that core value proposition. Don't forget that that is still the core of the business. But also, I think that's a really wise opening comment that if you're in the COVID disinfection, I'm sure we could come back to that in a moment. There's
Sure.
probably a lot to say there. That's well said. Trina, what about you? What should a marketer that's paying attention to this webinar right now, that's watching live, and they're asking, what does my week look like right now? What does my day look like as a marketer running a construction or restoration company currently?
Think definitely want to take it day by day. I don't know about you, but every day is Blur's day. So looking a week out can even be really challenging. And I think it's really hard to plan ahead at this moment and know that what you might think might work next week, it might not based on whatever your government decides. So I think it's really about listening. It's about how do we get our message out, what our priorities are as a company, and how do we connect them with what's going on and how our clients are feeling and how are they perceiving us right now. If we go out there and keep marketing and trying to sell to them, are they going to be offended? We generally think that as marketers, you should never stop marketing. It's always a good time to be present. So right now, I think if you want to be out there listening, go out into where large groups of your potential clients might be. That could be Facebook, that could be LinkedIn, because obviously we're doing this at a physical distance. What are they saying? What are their concerns? And if you're not finding the right places, start asking questions. Ask your existing client base. Reach out to them via phone, ideally. And if you can set up a one-to-one Zoom call, then ask them, what is it that you're concerned with right now, be it in your personal world or in whatever ways that we're helping you, and really respond to that at a true human level at this point, and just focus on how do we act as a community, no matter what type of business we're in.
Great. Oh, thanks, Trina. John, same question to you. What should a marketer's day look like right now? What should their week look like?
First and foremost, past clients. That's the thing that most businesses neglect, is marketing to their past clients. So right now, your clients don't even know whether you're open. And if they think that you might be open, they're not necessarily thinking about you. And even if they are thinking about you, they don't know all the services you do. Like Tim mentioned, do you do full sanitization wipe downs and fogging services and things like that? If you do, there's a good chance they don't know that you do that. So you need to be marketing to your past clients more than ever right this minute, this week, today. I would recommend phone calls, voicemail drops, where you can make calls that just drop to their voicemail on cell phones and different voicemail systems. Emails, of course, but a lot of times emails get ignored. So phone calls, but letters are great to businesses. And something attention getting in the mail, somebody there is going to read it. And it's not a personal visit, but it's almost as good. You could tell a whole story inside of a sales letter. So yeah, market to your past clients. That's the first and foremost. And then all of your hot prospects after that, follow up with them who you had in the last few months.
There's a lot of fantastic comments there. It's funny you mentioned that about talking to your past clients and informing them what your services are. I know that last week I had some service done in a vehicle, and I called an auto shop and I said, "Hey, are you open?" They said, "We're an essential service. We've been open the whole time." I'm like, "Oh, I had no idea." And then I said, "Hey, is there any chance you do this as well?" They're like, "Of course, we do that all the time." I'm like, I didn't know that, right? And so I actually delayed probably like 6 weeks on getting an important piece of maintenance on my vehicle. I just didn't know. And so that's a wise piece of advice. And it's interesting that you identify some personal touches that you can still have through letters and through, I don't think I've ever read so many coupons that come in the mail. I need something to do, so I'm reading what's coming in the mail. So that's well said. Well, those are some great opening comments, and so now I want to go to a question that has come up from a couple individuals before the event, which is that so much of their marketing was relationship driven, and so much of their marketing before this whole kind of COVID pandemic was really largely around building relationships. Because in the restoration industry, so many of those leads come up quite suddenly when an unplanned or unfortunate situation arises. I wonder. Let's talk about relationship building in non-in-person activities. Tim, let's start with you. Relationships are core to this business. The type of people who get into this business are generally in it because they like relationships.
Mhm.
How are you advising people to build relationships, build new relationships, strengthen existing relationships when you can't be in person?
Sure. Well, we tend to look at the overall marketing process in two major segments. The first is hunting or prospecting, and the second is farming. And what distinguishes those is that there is a commitment on the part of the prospect to engage with you at a higher level. So an agency agrees that they want to work with you and refer business to you, or a property manager wants an ERP put in place, that sort of thing. And so the relationship really is given permission to develop past that first commitment. And we call that the farming stage. And you're right, the face-to-face component of it was very, very important. In fact, we basically specify that we want all farming activity, the key farming activities, to be face-to-face visits. But given the fact that that's not possible, obviously we have to fall back. But even when we were doing face-to-face, the key to this is I'm very much against drop-in, hey, how you doing visits with no purpose. And along with that, donut dropping is something that I'm not a big fan of either. When we establish our relationships, they're based on some sort of value that we've said we're going to provide. And so our visits would reinforce that by typically educational material that would reinforce that value. And so given the fact that you're not able to do that face-to-face anymore, which is a big detriment, it can still be done by phone, by one-on-one Zoom meetings. I agree with what John was saying. You can be very creative with direct mail and one-on-one direct mail, bulky type mail. There's a lot of different ways that you can stay in touch, and you're going to have to use them. What I'm noticing is that salespeople are shrinking from this because it's different. And if it's different, it's harder. And so very, very important that they figure out what is the sequence of activity I want to engage in with these folks that I'm farming, and stick with it through this pandemic, because they'll remember who called them on a regular basis and who disappeared.
No, that's well said. And no, that's well said. John, I'd like to get your perspective, and then Trina, I actually want to go with you with a new question. But first, John, same question is that relationship building that is generally done in person has to shift. What's your advice?
Sure, it's complicated, but do anything you can do to communicate with your past clients. And it's going to take phone calls. It's going to take, like we talked about, ringless voicemail drops, emails, and you should be educating them about here's what they're worried about right now. So you should be a helper to them at this point, especially if you do anything remote to sanitization services. We're here as a resource for you. If you need a free consultation, just for me to come in, if you'd like, you give them that option, or get on the phone, or somehow set that up as a free consultation about what you should be doing in your business for sanitization services to protect yourself. We're here to help keep you safe. That's really kind of the big main message that I would give them. We're here to help keep you safe, you and your employees and your clients. And offer that via a Zoom meeting, offer that via phone call, personal meeting if they'd like. Tell them how you're going to wear all of the respirators and whatever whatever they're going to feel comfortable with. But do that as well. Educate them about that same stuff through the emails, through a letter. You got to be there for them at this point. And it's not always at this time about selling them right now. It's about being there to help them, and that being the main message.
No, that's really helpful. Trina, I'd like to go to you with a new question, and then we'll circle around. But still in the theme of relationship building, But right now, and perhaps from your experience as a marketer, how do you build strength in relationships with clients with marketing activities? What are some actual tactical things, maybe digitally, that people do to build relationships online if they're used to building them in person?
There's so many interesting tools that we can use now, and I think, if marketers inside companies aren't used to using them, there's no better time than to experiment right now, because everyone suddenly had to learn Zoom overnight and or a bunch of other different tools to connect face to face. So definitely using traditional social media such as Facebook, LinkedIn, just not to necessarily broadcast sales messages, but again, to let people know that you're there, that you're open, and that if they have questions, here's the number to call, or private message, this particular page. Just let people know that you're out there. There's people are so bombarded with right now with a lot of messages. I mean, there's a kind of a joke going around online that you have to finish the internet before you can finish your day, and that just
Mhm.
means endless scrolling. And a
Mm.
lot of people are getting caught up doing that. So if that's one of the main activities people are doing to get their information and get personal and or other news, then be there, because that's obviously where people are comfortable hanging out in their day. So there's a lot of other things that you can do. Host your own Zoom group meetings. Get some of your clients that might be similar, if they're comfortable and with their permission, of course, into a Zoom room privately and say, hey, let's just talk. Let's just pick a subject matter so we can stay a little bit more focused and on track. But let's really see how we can help each other out right now, because this is not, I don't think we're about competing in this moment. We're about how can we all do better. So just taking that step and putting the right people in the room for others can make a really big difference. And just one or two little nuggets can be remembered for a lifetime in a business.
Oh, thanks, Trina. Tim, I'm curious, software products. I mean, a lot of individuals right now are having to explore, using some of these software products that in, in a more of a long-standing industry like restoration, perhaps they didn't have to use a lot of these kind of tech-oriented software products. What are some of the must-use software tools in marketing that work well in the restoration industry? What are some of the software products that you recommend should be in everybody's tool belt?
Well, the first one is a CRM.
Mhm.
And one of the things that's, well, I guess you have to evaluate for yourself, but I think that the restoration industry has done a relatively poor job of stepping up to what a modern CRM should really be. And I think that's because of the reliance on what we would think of as route marketing.
Mhm.
So you'll find that a lot of enterprise software that contains a CRM functionality, it does not look like anything like what you would expect if you're used to using a modern CRM. So
Mhm.
there are third-party solutions that I think are very good, and some of the enterprise software companies are making strides in this arena. But this is number one, absolutely critical.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the video conferencing software. I think Zoom has proven to me. I don't use Zoom as my primary product, but I'm going to be switching to it because I think it's very, very easy to use, relatively intuitive. I think that's also incredibly important. But
Mhm.
also some of the other things that the other panelists were talking about, I think are very important. Something
Mhm.
also that is surprisingly impactful right now is text.
Mhm.
And there are text services that you can use to do broadcast text, but people respond to text in a completely different, text is like email was 20 years ago, right?
Mhm.
It was novel and interesting, and I always wanted to check it. We respond to our text at a much higher level than we do email. So looking at various technology solutions, I think are really important, but a good CRM, a good working knowledge of Zoom. And then and I think the other panels are maybe more qualified to speak about this, but lead generation applications like Infusionsoft or HubSpot or GetResponse. I think those have a real place in the market that they haven't been used very much in restoration in the past, but I think there's going to be a new awakening to what they can do.
Yeah, no, very, very well said, John. John, anything that you'd want to add to that list? Any kind of software tools that you're seeing out there that are great tools to use right now?
Other than Xactimate, obviously is a great one. QuickBooks is another one. There's email marketing platforms out there. I like Aweber quite a bit. But
Mhm.
in constant contact, stuff like that. But yeah, text is great. Like Tim said, big thing, big caution, don't abuse it. You got to get their permission. You can't do it too often, but text can be good. Voicemail drops can be good too, programs that are for that. But again, don't abuse those two things for sure. You got to get permission. You can't do it too much.
No, fantastic. Well, John, while we're on the spotlight's on you, one of the things that we've seen is that many firms have had to kind of educate the client. They've had to have a marketing strategy that starts to educate the client, not only to what you said earlier, which is that we are open, that we are offering services, but also to be able to educate the client of how they can still use your services in a safe way. Curious if you have any advice on how marketers can educate the market, educate their clients right now.
Sure. Well, like we already talked about, sales letters, and just big thing that they're wondering about right now is what can be done. If I need cleaning done, how are you going to do it? Are you going to be safe about doing it? If they need restoration done, are you going to be safe about when you come in? Also, too, the people that are concerned about sanitization services, setting them at ease about how you're going to do it by CDC standards and EPA guidelines, and maybe making the protocol about what you're going to be doing when you come in to do that, the types of sanitizers you're going to use. Do it in written format and post that in Facebook, Twitter, all over the place. Videos are huge. I've got a few clients that have made some really good videos that explain what they do for safety when they come out, what they do, how they're going to actually do the sanitization processes and wipe downs. Videos are great. And like you said, people are sitting around more often right now, even in the office or at home, watching YouTube videos and Facebook videos. So now's a great time to maybe spend a little money on creating something like that and about what your company does and how you can help them.
Absolutely. And I'm wondering, maybe just a question to the whole panel. Throw your hand up if you know, but one of the questions that we've seen come in is, does anyone know if you're allowed to, or if there's a process to be able to use, the EPA, the CDC, World Health Organization, branding, logos, statements on any of your marketing material? Does anyone have a perspective on that?
I would venture to say that unless you had specific permission and there was a protocol to obtain it, you probably are better off just stating it than actually using their brand in any way, just to be on the safe side.
There are certifications, I know. I don't think they're necessarily CDC or EPA. There are certifications that you can get for, I don't know if it's virus specific, but wipe down procedures and sanitization. Even housekeeping services get them and things like that. They're just online that you can get. I'm not sure if they have a logo or branding, but you can say that you were certified by whatever the certification service was.
And I would just add to that, that sort of hints at a particular type of marketing that I think we have to be very, very careful about. And that speaks to having a good contract. But remember that there is no way to even know if COVID-19 is in a building, let alone whether or not you've removed it. And so we have to be very, very clear to people that we're using our best effort as an educated professional, following the guidelines of the CDC and EPA and OSHA. And I'd be very careful about an implied endorsement, because it's sort of like termites, right? If you have the pest control guy come out to treat your property for termites, he's not saying there are no termites on your property. He's saying, I'm reducing these down to the best of my professional ability in order to prevent damage to your property. And so we have to be very careful that we're making very similar claims. We don't overclaim what we can do unless you're looking for a massive lawsuit or not getting paid.
No, that's I think that's all wise counsel. Tim, while you've got the microphone here, I'd like to shift the conversation to budget. And right now, there's a lot of marketers who are tuning in right now who are wondering, what do I do with my budget that I struck, maybe last Q3 or Q4 last year for right now? Do I change it? Do I throw it out? Do I just keep the spending? To some of the comments earlier that, we're still in the same industry. What's your perspective on what marketers should do with their budgets right now?
Sure, that's a really good question. and some of this that you have to ask is how much of it is marketing budget versus sales expense. And I think another really important thing to consider here is to what extent has your business been impacted, your regular business been impacted by the pandemic? We have clients whose business has fallen off a cliff. I mean, where they've lost 70, 80% of their normal restoration business is gone. Others who remarkably have had maybe a 10% impact, and it's all over the country. It's very interesting. So if you're one of those who's had a major impact, you have to shift that budget right away, and you have to shift it to providing COVID services. And we've had clients do that very, very successfully. I was talking to a client yesterday who's generated $450,000 in COVID cleaning in the last 2 months, and thank goodness, because that's what's kept the company afloat. And smaller companies in the same way. So, and I think that generally speaking, I would err on the side of consistency. If I've got regular marketing that's going out, I would probably continue to run it. Now, we don't know, is this another 2 months or another 2 years? And so I would probably be making some judgments about that down the road a little bit. But certain things that you probably conserve money. For example, I've saved $30,000 or $40,000 and not going to trade shows this year. So personally, I've done a lot of stuff that's very inexpensive marketing wise to replace that, like webinars and so on. So I think you have to look at it in terms of how your business has been impacted.
So before we move to another question here, maybe John, same question to you. What's your perspective on what marketers should be doing with their budgets right now?
It really depends. Similar to what Tim said. I mean, if you're if your business is doing really bad, you don't have the same budget, so what do? You do all of the cheap stuff that you can do. If you need to figure out how to make a YouTube video, you make a YouTube video. You put it on there. You get a small budget for running a YouTube ad. You maybe send that and email that out to your past clients, put it on Facebook, do everything that you can to catch attention on that on a shoestring budget. If your business is still doing okay, I've got clients that are still doing fine. Some of them are doing a little bit better than they were last year. Not as many, don't get me wrong, but there are a few. I'd say at least half of them are doing close to average, but a little bit below average. I got lots that are doing really bad though. So it all depends on what your business is doing. Maybe it depends on what state you're in. If you're in New York, some of those guys are in real bad shape, especially outside of the city. So, do all the cheap stuff that you can do if needed, but if you've still got the budget, my staple is still always going back to past clients, especially if you've been in business for more than a couple of years. After that, start building on new clients, but make sure your past clients don't forget to spend money on them. Don't forget to go back and let them know that you're open. Let them know all the things that you can do. And maybe you weren't doing sanitization services or they don't know, but I'd highly recommend that you start to do it if at all possible. Most restoration companies can. Again, that's a business decision. So I'm not going to say for sure that everybody needs to do that, but probably if you're in the restoration business. But let them know what you can do. Communicate to the past clients and then go after new clients.
And I wondered, maybe just to put you on the spot, John, if a marketer said, "Hey, if I was going to test $1,000 right now on something, where would you spend $1,000 right now?"
I would probably spend it, depending on the city that they're in, either Google AdWords or sales letters.
Sales letters.
That's why I would get a list and go to a broker, and one of the two.
And just to get a little more granular on those sales letters, is that a service that you're using? Or are you creating those and mailing them yourself?
Both. It depends. It depends on if they've got more budget, then maybe use the service, or they could do it themselves. A lot of the times you can do it yourself if you have office staff to do that. And maybe a good portion of those sales letters, again, to past clients, and whatever you have left to new clients.
So something that was said earlier on the panel, I think it was by Tim, is that let's not forget the business that we're in, and there's a lot of marketing tactics that are still working, and we shouldn't abandon them. But there's probably some that are just dead right now, and we really should just clear them off our plates. Trina, I'd love to go to you. What marketing tactics are you seeing with your clients are still working? Like, you're still generating inbound leads, or still generating phone calls? What is working right now?
Generally, organic social media is working still very, very well because, again, everybody's there all day, all night. And Facebook advertising right now is also seeing a huge increase in actual lead generation, actual inquiries, clicking right through to the website and getting to the contact form if you're in the right industry. The Facebook advertising got a lot less expensive during this time because a lot of the major players with the big expensive products aren't really spending their money right now because not a lot of people are buying brand new cars. Not a lot of people are qualifying for brand new cars. So those types of companies pulled out of a lot of their digital marketing strategies. So, different sizes of companies now have more opportunity and more ground to play with there. And we've seen it work way better than expected during COVID. So, and emails are working as well. I think Galen West from President's Choice, in my opinion, was the person who started doing it right first from the big companies. I'm not sure about you, but I got letters from banks I haven't been with for years and years asking how I'm doing without using my name because they clearly don't know who I am. So those things are no generic anything. I don't feel like it's working well at all right now. So we've also, I think, John, you touched on this too, embed a video into your email. If you're going to text somebody and the video is posted somewhere that they can easily get to through their phone, send them the link so that you can personally say hello and, send the message and really use all the tools that we have as people to show each other what we really mean. We can see each other, we can hear the voice, we have body language, and just, doing more authentic videos. And like you again said, John, earlier, if you have to go on the cheap right now, nobody minds an authentic video made from your home office because that's where we all are. I'm actually in my home office, by the way. What's behind me is not my home office.
Fantastic. And again, maybe to get a little more granular, Trina. So if right now I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm saying, okay, shoot a video, send it to my client. Just walk me through that. How do I do that? If I don't right now, I'm thinking, do I need to have video production software? Can you just very specifically walk me through how I would do that?
Yeah, I would say get a free version of Zoom. If it's just you and less than 4 other people, it's completely free and there's no time limit. So it's a fantastic tool. You just need your laptop camera. You record whatever, you start a meeting by yourself. You record it to your desktop. And then you can put it on Google Drive or upload it to YouTube, wherever it's going to be easy for your client to click to without logins and passwords. And you can just send them that link and say, it could be highly personalized using your name. Hey, Leighton, I meant to call you, but it's now 10 p.m. and I was just thinking about you. So hopefully you see this in the morning, that sort of thing. Or you can do it a little bit more broad, of course, to a group of clients and say, hey, I just wanted to reach out. I hope you're doing well. And, really just be, again, speaking to that one person at a time. I think that's really key in understanding you're not trying to broadcast a message. You're trying to get a message through to the individual who's seeing it on the other side of the screen. One of my peeve of all peeves is actually, hey, everyone. Because it was one person sitting on the other side of the screen. So, just say hello, like as if you were talking to me right now.
Right. Yeah, it's very different. I'm sure we've all received an email where, it didn't format right and it says, hi, bracket, person's first name, bracket. You're like, oh no. Yeah, exactly. And so that's, it's taking that, it's quality over quantity, I suppose people would say, right? A question that I sparked some intrigue there was, John, your comment on how you spend $1,000. Tim, maybe to you, going back to that previous question, if there's a company that has maybe a larger budget, you made the comment earlier, you said, I would save $30,000 or $40,000 not going to conferences. If a company had $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 that they had prior committed to something, but now they have some budget, what would you recommend that they do with, say, $10,000 or $20,000?
Hire me. No, just kidding. No, okay. So I'm really I love all the marketing side of the business, but when it comes right down to it, I think that sales is where it's at, especially if you've got the already sunk cost of having salespeople as part of your organization. So if I had, the extra money and I was going to do COVID services, obviously I'm going to have to develop some collateral. I'm going to have to understand what my value proposition is. But the people that say that cold calling is dead, for example,
Mhm.
those are people that sell products that compete with cold calling.
Mhm.
It is amazing how much business you can generate. And by the way, I completely agree with what John said first about your existing customer base. That's the low hanging fruit. But there's also tremendous opportunities for doing PR. We recommended early on that our clients talk to the local police department, local fire department. And of course, that's been now done on a widespread basis. But doing those type of projects pro bono as a community service generated enormous amounts of business. Working with the chambers of commerce. And then as they expanded out and started cold calling according to just fundamental sales principles, you'll find that there's different sort of veins of gold. In one particular market, we found that a manufacturer handled a COVID case particularly poorly and was all over the media in a negative way. And so we went to all the other manufacturers who were terrified of that happening to them. And all of a sudden there's tremendous opportunity. The chamber program opened up a lot of business. And so there's incidental expenses, collateral, sales letters, follow-up, but a tremendous amount of it is just fundamental selling. And what I mean by that is it's not, hey, we've got this service and people will all of a sudden say, oh, great, sign me up. It's not that at all. It's a much more difficult sale. But if you understand the pains that people are having and you understand how your value proposition will address those pains and you have a sales process to have that conversation, I don't think you need to spend a lot of money. In fact, I would keep as much in reserve as I possibly could. PPP is helping a lot of people through this right now, but that's, those 8 weeks are just about up. So we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I'm very concerned that we're opening too soon and that we're going to see a second wave that's going to really make the situation worse. So I would say use the sunk costs that you already have, make your investments judiciously. And also, no, I'm not an expert in social media or some of the things that John and Trina are, and I'm not suggesting that they don't have great ideas. They sound really good to me.
No, that's I think that's an honest and very practical suggestion. No, thanks, Tim. John, one of the things that you do a lot with your clients is strategy. Like you help them develop strategy plans. There's many companies that right now is probably not a bad time to actually take that time to actually go from maybe reactive marketing or just kind of we've always been doing it, so let's just keep doing it, to maybe actually thinking more strategically. I appreciate that a strategic plan is broad and it's all encompassing, but could you give us a summary of kind of what is the process to develop a marketing strategy, John? And we can get the other panelists to weigh in on that as well.
Sure. As far as the process, first you need to consider two things.
Mhm.
One, who is your target prospect? Have them in mind. And you might want to do different campaigns for different groups. Maybe you're doing one campaign specifically for insurance adjusters. Maybe you're doing another one at this point, maybe for medical facilities with waiting rooms for COVID cleanup or fogging and sanitization services. So figure out who that target prospect is, and then figure out the key thing that you want to tell them. In advertising, it's just called your key point or your key message. So what is that key message? We can help you get your facility clean. Or if it's for insurance companies, we can help your clients if you want to work as a referral, but whatever that key message is. But let's say it's doctors and medical facilities, we can help you have a clean facility, a safe facility. And that now, at that point, you need to sit down and figure out what's the best media to get that message to that client. And I don't know what that is until I sit down and do a lot of brainstorming to figure that out. And I'm going to be thinking of, well, maybe it's a sales letter and then weigh out the pros and cons. Maybe it's LinkedIn, weigh out the pros and cons. Maybe it's phone calls. Maybe it's, well, sometimes it's personal visits, but right now it's kind of a hard time to do that. Maybe it's email. I don't know. Probably more often than not for something like that, it's going to be right now sales letters, maybe LinkedIn, and maybe voice phone calls, things like that. But yeah, that's really how you do it. And then you figure out after you figure out what the media is, the best media to reach that target prospect with that message, then you start to think of creative ideas for what you're going to say. A lot of people go about that whole process wrong. They start going, Facebook, what am I going to do on Facebook? Wrong way to do it. You don't even know who you're marketing to yet. You don't even know if Facebook's the best way to do that.
Hmm. And and there's a so persona, key message, tactics, and I'm sure that throughout that, there's probably some iterating and experimenting, but it's so important to start that with that process, as opposed to just, like you said. I thought that, like, closing comment was so, I mean, I can see past marketing activities in my world just saying, okay, I'm also supposed to use Twitter, better start tweeting.
But
So
why?
that's
Now you're wasting your time. And maybe
exactly. 100%. No, 100%. And one of the things that, Trina, you had said earlier is that you had said, hey, um, go find where your prospective clients are, because they're congregating somewhere digitally, be that in a group on LinkedIn or a group on Facebook, maybe, who knows, maybe there's a lot of forums, but that's an opportunity to go into those online communities. Trina, maybe going back to that, how do you go to an online community and actually derive insight from that? What does that look like? I mean, am I just kind of staring at it creepily? Am I creating a fake profile and asking, man, I wish I knew a good restoration company. I mean, how do you actually derive insight from a digital community?
I think you definitely still have to be authentic. I
Mhm.
don't recommend a fake profile if you can avoid it. If it's
Okay.
if it's a very specific example is, there's a lot of this ninja stuff going on. Have you heard of that? There's wine
Uh,
ninjas, and then there's the whiskey wizards for men. And basically what it is, if you join the whiskey wizards, then what you're doing is allowing people to know your personal address, and they will surprise you with a bag of whiskey, a gift bag with a bottle of whiskey and a bunch of other treats for you. And you all agree to participate. So
okay.
just being in that group and knowing the foundational common ground is obviously that they're men in a very specific area, because it's divided by city and then areas. You can start to listen to those conversations and see what else is happening. And in my opinion, it has to be very organic and authentic as well. There's a
Mhm.
lot of business people on Facebook, and then therefore also in these groups. There's a lot of prospective clients in these groups. And you can start
Mhm.
asking questions when it's appropriate. Because
Mhm.
normally what will happen first is, hey, Leighton and John just joined our group. Welcome. Tell us about yourselves.
Mhm.
You get the opportunity to introduce yourself. And anyone who keys in and says, oh, that sounds like something I need or I'd like to talk about, you now have a
Mhm.
direct link to the other person where you can
Mhm.
private message and say, hey, I found your name in Whiskey Wizards and I'd like to talk to you about, restoring XYZ because that's what you said you do. Is that okay?
Mhm.
So it's kind of just like networking anywhere else. You're in a room sometimes that's a little bit random,
Mhm.
and you start having conversations and you finally realize who
Mhm.
is really more valuable to have a conversation with. And then you start pairing off. So
Right. Interesting. And that's a great, there's a lot of great points there. I think one of the things that I hadn't considered is I have joined some of those communities, and they do have a practice of introducing yourself, but I've never actually, like, gone back and said, let's just find everyone who's introduced themselves. Eventually everybody had a start, and
right.
I could probably go back and just very quickly learn, 30, 40, types of introductions. That's really helpful.
Mhm.
No, thanks, Trina. I want to shift gears because another area that is, I would call it like a perpetually um, just timeless challenge for marketers, and I want to go to you, Tim, is the process of managing the impact of marketing. And I think it was Drucker who said, you can't manage what you can't measure. And Tim, I know that you're a big believer in being able to be, a metric-driven, data-driven business.
Mhm.
Right now, it's a great opportunity for people to maybe move from, let's call it, I've heard it called like spray and pray type marketing, to maybe more strategic marketing that's connected to other business KPIs and metrics. Um, can you unpack um, what a business looks like that's taking more of a measured monitor data-driven approach to marketing, and how can someone become that? And we'll certainly go to the other panelists.
Sure. Well, let's work back from the most important KPI of all, which is revenue.
Mhm.
And I'm going to focus on sales first, and then we can back into marketing a little bit.
Mhm.
So, the way that I think that you evaluate salespeople in your sales program is by revenue generated, and maybe to an extent profit, depending on how much impact your salespeople can have on profitability. But one of the things that we're dealing with in our industry that's pretty unique is we're not selling a product right now that we're going to exchange money for. Nobody's got a water job waiting for you when you show up at the agency. So what we have to be looking at then are what are the activities that lead to those referrals that lead to revenue. And so if we back our way back from there, I think that one of the most important KPIs is the ability of a salesperson to get meetings with qualified decision makers, whether that's an agency owner or a plumbing or HVAC contractor owner or a property manager, facility manager, adjuster, whatever. If a salesperson cannot obtain meetings within the first 2 weeks after training, they're probably not going to make it because their skill set is just lacking in something that's fundamentally critically important. The next question is, what is your close rate on those meetings? So depending on how you do it, the close rate can often be quite high if you're focusing on pain. So it's not about, hey, here's all about us and how great we are, and boy, you should be using us because we're so much better than everybody else. It needs to be about them and their problems. And your value proposition has to be focused very clearly there. So then you'd be looking at, okay, if I can close my at the desk meetings at, let's say, just for the sake of argument, 60%, and I want to have 10 new deals in this month, how many meetings do I need? Let's make it 50%, so I can do the math. I need 20 meetings to get my 10 new deals. Okay. So of those, to get those 20 meetings, what do I have to do? How many new opportunities do I have to open in that period of time? Okay, so let's just say it's a 10% conversion from new opportunities to meetings. That's 200 new opportunities, but it's not going to be a single activity that's going to get me those meetings, right? It's going to be multiple activities, hopefully making sense together as one leads to the next, to the next, to the next. And that on average, I'll get 10% of those people to convert. So I want to look at how many activities as a multiplier on average. So if I've got 200 new opportunities and I have let's say a multiplier of 5 activities to each of those, I have 1,000 activities to get 10 deals, right? So I'd want to be looking at all of those numbers. And I also want to look at, is that a realistic thing to ask a salesperson to do? And over time, over a few months' time, as these things start to turn and start to produce referrals and revenue, you start to see the correlation pretty easily. But really, with salespeople, there's 2 major issues: not enough activity, and the activity is not done skillfully. And then, so similarly on the lead generation side, which probably John or Trina could talk about more effectively, I'd be looking at what are the leads coming in for the expense generated, and there's a lot of romance around lead gen, and don't get me wrong, there's some magic when you really know how to do it. It can be magical. I know John does a lot of that stuff and he's very effective at it. But similarly, I'd just be looking at, okay, leads coming in, how they convert at different stages, ultimately into revenue.
No, that's yeah. You can see that reverse engineering is critical to that whole process.
Yes.
So essentially, desired outcome, activities, ratios, and then in addition to everything you said, what I'm hearing is monitor those ratios, because I remember one time I had a colleague that told me something that really stuck. Is I said, well, how do you set a goal? How do you set a ratio when you haven't even started? And they said, all you have to do is, it's going to be wrong, so just set it and then tweak it every day. But what you're describing is this this beautiful system. I think of John, you had said earlier, start with persona, start thinking about message, start thinking about tactics. Tim, you're talking about desired kind of desired outcome. There's a consistent message here of reverse engineering things. So all of that is super valuable. So as I look at time, and I mean, our time is almost gone here. There's been a lot of fantastic advice. I want to give the microphone to each panelist to answer one last question that I think all of our participants are interested in, is that so many are getting pressure from ownership, from management, to bring in leads, to bring in revenue, so that no one's going to get fired, so the business can keep rolling. And there's just that natural pressure to bring in results, so that, essentially the sales teams can get out there, close jobs, revenue can come in the door, and payroll can go out on Friday. So I want to start with you, Trina, go to John, then go to Tim. But for a marketer who's paying attention right now, they've got pen and paper in hand, and they're wondering, I need to be able to go to my boss and be able to say, this is how I'm going to get some leads that are going to convert into sales, so we can keep the revenue coming in. What would be kind of your closing advice there, Trina?
It would be to definitely listen to as many broad marketing panel chats like this as possible, and take those nuggets back to your boss, mold it around what fits for your industry and your specific company, and say, this is where I got this advice from. We're all being told right now, and I think you could agree, that nobody's 100% sure about what's going to work perfectly. But our best, educated guess on how we're going to survive this is to do these sorts of things. I need you on my side because I need to experiment a little bit here, because obviously we've never been here before as a company. We've never been here before as a planet. So, I think having that realistic conversation with your boss to say, I want to try these things that I hear are working. Here's where the advice came from. Will you support me with that?
Great. Thanks, Trina. John, same question to you. Someone says, I need to get results. I'm responsible to bring in results. We're having trouble making payroll. What's your advice, John?
Yeah, that's always the problem of the business owner or the marketing manager, right? And the funny thing is, like Trina kind of said, marketing's a gamble. There's, but the thing is, you need to take an educated gamble, not just a gamble. You're not at the casino. You're taking a very educated gamble. So do the smart things, do the research. You really need to find things that are if your back's against the wall and you really need to get some business coming in, you need to find some things that are tangible right now that you can do. Some of the top things, if that's kind of the question that you're asking for, that I know of that are working, and I've already talked about some of them, again, past client marketing, letters to, again, past clients, to hot prospects that you talked to recently, phone calls to those same people, emails, good videos. Google AdWords for sanitization services in a lot of areas is doing pretty good, as a new, kind of an AdWords thing. You can't say COVID, by the way, in an AdWords ad, but sometimes that is working well. Facebook, done right and the right patterns, is doing well. LinkedIn, marketing directly to businesses on occasions can be doing well. But yeah, those kind of things. Trying to think of if there's anything else to add to that list. There probably is, but I'm just not thinking of anything offhand. Those are the things that are coming to my mind that I've seen working.
Yeah, that's great. And I know you have a broad, you see a lot of activities, so that's certainly valuable. And then Tim, same question to you. What would be your advice to that individual who's saying, honey, I'm responsible for bringing in leads today?
Okay, so we're in a very, very tough spot. Restoration has fallen off tremendously, and it's hard to go out and grab restoration jobs. Cleaning is even worse. So what I would do is I would be going after the COVID services for sure. And but the problem is, anytime as a salesperson you're pushing, you're actually working against your greatest asset, which is your authenticity and the value proposition that you're bringing and the understanding of the pains that you're trying to solve. This is a complex sale. It's not as simple as we thought initially. It'd be simple. Hey, there's a pandemic. Hey, we can help. Sign me up. And it's totally not that. It's much more of a standard sale, if you will, where you have to go through the normal sales process. And in fact, we immediately created a sales program, a 23-page document, to help our clients use the same principles we taught them in restoration marketing to go after this COVID business. And I wasn't planning on this, and if this is not appropriate, you tell me, but I'm willing to give away 10 of those They're normally $199 to the first 10 people that ask for it. It's a quite comprehensive look at how to go out and get that COVID business. And if you're really hurting and you need to stay afloat, that's what I would do.
Great. No, no, thanks for that. So, we could keep going. I mean, I've got a number of questions that I'd love to cover, but we're out of time, and everyone's got to get back and do some marketing, right? So, let me just take a moment and remind everyone that we are going to provide a recording of this. And so, if you found it helpful, if you wanted to go back to certain comments that Trina made, or Tim made, or John made, we're going to provide that to you, and feel free to share it. Like, if you have people in your network that you think would benefit from this advice, feel free to share it. It's our gift to you. So big thank you to John Braun from Hitman Advertising. Make sure you check out John and his website. Big thank you to Trina Lo from Fresh In Communications. Make sure you follow up with her. Find these people on LinkedIn. And big thank you to Tim Miller and the whole team there at Business Development Associates. Very helpful. I want to thank our industry partners, Business Mentors, Core Group, Ask Amy, and Hitman Advertising. Great partners in kind of helping us get the word out. So hopefully you got some tactical advice that you can go and plug that into your marketing program, generate some leads, start bringing revenue through the door. And I hope you're excited. I wrote down some ideas as well. So I hope you have a great day. Thanks again to our panelists, and take care.